Let's move to gun control. There's been, I think, some new bills that have come out in the last couple of weeks, and I haven't really been able to keep up. But as far as gun control, we have some pretty stringent laws in California, at least from what you hear from people up here. And there is a take from people in the North State that, maybe lawmakers in LA and Sacramento aren't looking from a 50,000 foot level at issues that are having in their cities, and maybe the laws and regulations that are put in place are a little bit punitive to people in rural counties, and whether they're trying to protect their livestock or whether they're trying to have home protection. But where are you on some of those issues? And is it time for Northern California to decide that we are in it for our neighbors here, and sometimes you got to make sacrifices to the things we do. We're not immune to it here, Dave. We've had some shootings up here. We've had a mass shooting that could have been much worse than it was. It was forwarded by some teachers at a school in Rancho Tehama County, and but there's certainly a gun culture up here that is resonant with the old West, I guess, and some hard people that don't want to that see any type of gun control measure as a slippery slope.
So I think it's important to look at the science and the evidence, and those states that have strong common sense gun laws do much better in terms of the incidence of gun violence than those states that do not. And as you say, California has some of the strongest common sense gun control laws in the nation. As a consequence, compared to other states that don't, on a per capita basis, we have far less gun violence. We're not immune to it, however, and also we're not immune to the fact that surrounding states have weaker laws, and individuals can take advantage of that and then come into our state. So I think that these laws are important, and I think it's important as a mechanism to try to reduce gun violence. Now, responsible gun owners who are collectors or have guns for purposes of hunting or other sporting activities, no one's suggesting that the state government should go and take their guns away. But there are increasing efforts to try to restrict availability and make it a little bit harder for people that might cause harm to get a gun, and I think that's appropriate. But in addition to the laws themselves, we have to make sure we're implementing those laws. And one of the important jobs of the Attorney General is administering the Armed Prohibited Persons Database. This is a database under the Office of the Attorney General. And in California, we have a law that says that if you've been adjudicated by a court to be so mentally ill that you're a danger to yourself or others if you have a weapon, or if you've been convicted of a serious felony or misdemeanor and the court has said you really shouldn't have a weapon anymore, or if you're subject to a domestic violence restraining order and a court has said you shouldn't have a gun anymore. Well, if you fall into any of those three categories, then you're supposed to surrender your gun. The problem is there's a backlog of close to 10,000 individuals that fall into those three categories that are in this Armed Prohibited Persons Database who have not surrendered their weapons. And it's the responsibility of the Attorney General to make sure that they have surrendered their weapons. And one of the big distinctions between me and the current incumbent is his failure to make sure that that backlog has been reduced. And so were I Attorney General, I would make it a priority to obtain weapons from those that have fallen into these three categories. And again, this is after full due process, after an adjudication. These are either individuals that are so mentally ill, the courts decided they shouldn't have a gun, or they're convicted of serious felonies or misdemeanors, or they're subject to a domestic violence restraining order where a court has decided that because they committed some injury on a domestic partner or spouse, there's a risk that they might hurt that person more and they shouldn't have a gun. And so those 10,000 or so people are a risk in all of our communities across California. And I would make it a priority to make sure that we obtain the surrender of their weapons first and foremost, because they're the ones that pose the greatest threat to themselves or other people.